In the late 19th century, something extraordinary was happening inside the United States, but most Americans never noticed it. While railroads expanded across the continent and smokestacks transformed the skyline of cities like New York, Boston, and Chicago, another network was quietly rising in the shadows. It did not belong to Wall Street. It was not controlled by Washington. And it was not built by industrial tycoons. It was built by priests, immigrants, and thousands of women who had taken vows of poverty. Brick by brick, classroom by classroom, the Catholic Church was constructing what would become the largest private education system in the world. And according to many historians, this hidden educational empire did more than preserve a religion. It helped shape modern America itself. The strange part is that almost nobody talks about it today, because behind the familiar image of American public schools lies a forgotten story of fear, discrimination, political battles, Supreme Court cases, immigrant survival, and a quiet war over the soul of the nation. To understand why the Catholic Church created its own school system, we need to travel back to a very different America. During the 1800s, millions of immigrants arrived in the United States from Ireland and Germany. They came escaping famine, poverty, political unrest, and religious persecution. But when these Catholic immigrants stepped onto American soil, they did not find the welcoming nation they had imagined. Instead, they entered a country deeply suspicious of Catholicism. Many Protestant Americans believed the Catholic Church represented a foreign power loyal to Rome rather than the United States. Newspapers portrayed Catholics as dangerous outsiders. Political movements openly warned that the Pope intended to infiltrate and control America. Anti-Catholic riots erupted in several cities. Churches were burned, convents were attacked, and nowhere was the tension more visible than inside the classroom. At the time, America's public schools, known as common schools, were far from religiously neutral. Protestant prayers were common. Students often read from the King James Bible. Textbooks sometimes described Catholicism as backward, authoritarian, or even hostile to democracy. For many Catholic parents, sending their children into these schools felt like slowly watching them lose their faith and cultural identity. The fear was not imaginary. Bishops and priests warned that an entire generation of immigrant children could become disconnected from their religion, their families, and their traditions if they were educated entirely within a Protestant cultural framework. And so the Catholic Church made a decision that would change American history forever. Rather than fight for control of the public system, Catholic leaders began building their own. Parish schools started appearing beside churches in immigrant neighborhoods across the country. These schools were not simply religious institutions, they became centers of cultural survival. In classrooms filled with the children of Irish dock workers, Italian laborers, Polish factory workers, and German farmers, Catholic education offered something powerful: the possibility of becoming fully American without abandoning one's faith. In many cities, these schools were even bilingual, helping immigrant children transition into American society while still preserving their roots. One of the earliest pioneers of this movement was Elizabeth Ann Seton, who founded the first free Catholic parochial school in the United States in 1810. Over time, she would become the first American-born saint in the Catholic Church. But at the time, few could have imagined how massive this educational mission would become. What began as scattered parish efforts slowly evolved into a coordinated national system unlike anything America had ever seen. Then came one of the most important moments in the history of Catholic education in America, the Third Plenary Council of Baltimore in 1884. During this historic gathering, Catholic bishops issued a dramatic directive. Every parish, they declared, should establish its own school within 2 years. Catholic parents were strongly encouraged, and in some cases morally obligated, to send their children there. It was an astonishing act of organization. Practically overnight, the Church committed itself to constructing an enormous parallel educational network across the entire country. But there was one enormous problem. How could poor immigrant communities possibly afford it? Most Catholic families during this period were not wealthy. Many worked dangerous industrial jobs for low wages. They lived in crowded urban neighborhoods and struggled simply to survive. Building schools, paying teachers, and maintaining educational standards should have been financially impossible. Yet somehow, the system not only survived, it expanded with incredible speed. The answer came through one of the most remarkable and least discussed workforces in American history, the religious sisters. Thousands upon thousands of Catholic nuns became the backbone of the system. They taught children in classrooms from morning until evening while living under vows of poverty. They received almost no salary. In 1953, the average annual salary for a religious sister teaching in America was approximately $511 a year. Even adjusted for the era, it was astonishingly low. Yet these women continued teaching generation after generation of children, often in overcrowded schools with limited resources. Historians sometimes describe them as a hidden army, and in many ways, they were. At the peak of the Catholic school system in 1965, roughly 181,000 religious sisters were teaching across the United States. Their sacrifice allowed poor parishes to offer an education that often rivaled and sometimes surpassed the public schools funded by taxes. Discipline was strict. Academic standards were demanding. Students learned religion, literature, mathematics, history, and civic responsibility. But perhaps more importantly, Catholic schools taught immigrant children how to navigate American life while maintaining a strong sense of identity and community. Ironically, many of the same institutions once accused of resisting American culture eventually became engines of American integration. By the early 20th century, Catholic schools had produced doctors, lawyers, soldiers, teachers, business owners, and politicians. Entire immigrant communities climbed into the middle class through education provided by the Church. Yet even as the system expanded, political resistance against Catholic education intensified. One of the greatest battles emerged around government funding. In 1875, Congressman James G. Blaine proposed a constitutional amendment designed to prevent public money from supporting religious schools. Although the federal amendment ultimately failed, versions of these Blaine amendments were adopted in dozens of states. Supporters claimed they were defending the separation of church and state. Critics argued something very different, that the laws were rooted in anti-Catholic prejudice aimed specifically at limiting Catholic educational growth. The consequences were enormous. Catholic families now faced a double financial burden. They paid taxes, supporting public schools, while also funding their own parochial schools privately through donations, parish support, and personal sacrifice. Yet despite these obstacles, the system continued growing. And then, in the 1920s, it faced what may have been its greatest existential threat of all. In Oregon, lawmakers passed legislation effectively requiring all children to attend public schools. Private education itself was suddenly under attack. Behind the movement were groups deeply suspicious of Catholic influence in American society. If the law survived, Catholic schools across the nation could eventually disappear. The battle went all the way to the Supreme Court. In 1925, the court delivered a landmark decision in the case of Pierce v. Society of Sisters. The ruling declared that parents, not the state, possessed the constitutional right to direct the education of their children. The decision permanently protected private and religious education in America. To this day, legal scholars consider it one of the most important rulings in the history of educational freedom in the United States. And yet, despite surviving political hostility, financial struggles, and legal attacks, the Catholic school system would eventually face another crisis, one coming from inside the church itself. During the second half of the 20th century, the number of religious vocations began declining dramatically. Fewer women entered convents. The massive workforce of teaching sisters slowly disappeared. Lay teachers replaced them, bringing higher salary costs that many parishes could not sustain. Thousands of Catholic schools eventually closed, especially in urban areas where demographics changed and parish communities weakened. Many observers predicted the system would collapse entirely, but something unexpected happened. Even with fewer schools and fewer religious teachers, Catholic education continued producing remarkable academic outcomes. According to modern National Assessment of Educational Progress data, often called the nation's report card, students in Catholic schools consistently outperform national averages in reading and mathematics. During the educational disruptions following the COVID-19 pandemic, Catholic schools often showed greater resilience and smaller academic declines compared to many public systems. In some inner-city areas, Catholic schools serving minority communities have achieved graduation rates above 90%. Researchers and education experts continue debating exactly why these schools remain so effective. Some point to discipline and structure. Others emphasize parental involvement, community identity, or moral formation. But the results themselves are difficult to ignore. Perhaps the greatest irony of all is this: a system originally created by poor immigrants trying to defend themselves from discrimination eventually became one of the most successful educational networks in American history. And today, most Americans walk past these old brick Catholic schools without realizing the story hidden inside their walls. Because these buildings were never just schools. They were shelters for immigrant families. They were symbols of resistance against prejudice. They were training grounds for generations seeking acceptance in a new nation. They represented a quiet partnership between faith and ambition, between Rome and America, between tradition and modernity. And behind every classroom stood countless forgotten figures: priests, parents, and especially the sisters who dedicated their lives to teaching children they would never see become adults. In many ways, the story of Catholic schools is also the story of America itself, a nation shaped not only by presidents and businessmen, but by immigrants searching for dignity, identity, and a future for their children. And perhaps that is why this forgotten educational empire still matters today. Because long before debates over culture wars, education policy, and national identity dominated headlines, another battle over the soul of American education had already taken place. Quietly, patiently, and largely forgotten by history.